Welcome to chapter number 5. We're going to take a very brief look at how the world and its the kind of cultural explanations of life and death. Now, the reason we're doing this is because it influences culture and how people live their lives. I mean, without a doubt, uh, your view of time and how you fit into it and what your responsibilities may be, or yeah, I guess that's the best way to say it, is going to influence how you work and how you communicate and how you see things. So there is a worldview. It's different. They manifest themselves in behavior and communication. And these are the best examples. And the other slides I'm going to go through very quickly, but what's the purpose in life? And this is why it's tied back to religious convictions or lack thereof. I would think that people that are not religious in any way, shape, or form, that claim to be agnostic or atheistic, the purpose of life is a tough question for them to answer. And impossible, really. I mean, they may have an idea, but it is a very finite one. What's the right way to live? What happens when you die? Those types of things. What's right and wrong are definitely influenced in those areas. And manifest themselves in work-related ideas. Culture cannot be, like we talked about in earlier chapters, cannot be untied from religious and family convictions, so they all kind of work together. View as you view the world, you tend to interact with it. So there is a definite link, as the book agrees with what I just said, a link between worldview and behavior, seen in how culture perceives the business arena. And that's why it's good to have a working knowledge of these ideas. So we've got really a difference between a religious view of the world and a secular view. Secular being you are your own determinant of what's right and wrong, your responsibilities, and so on. For example, a secular person, truly, if they're honest, cannot say that there's any such thing as evil. That is a religious view, or good or bad. It is a relative statement. It is not a statement that has enduring value, or it's a relative value. It's just like ethics are situationally determined. They are not, like we talked about in one of the first chapters, they're not fundamental things that are unchanging. And the views of spirituality are part of that as well. And so this ties directly into our discussion of religion in the other ones, in the other chapters, and those principles. And it all relates to, and it goes back to the view of time, life, death, life after death, or lack thereof, depending upon your point of view. It's that view, and what's important is critical to business dealings and communication. I'm going to skip over that. Oops, I'm sorry. I have a hard time advancing my slides when I'm in this record mode. Okay, there we go. Now I'm kind of back. What's religious, what's sacred, nature of life and death, which I've kind of beat on. As we talked about earlier, if God determines what's right and wrong versus what I do, that's a whole different type of worldview than someone who believes otherwise. Christianity, the dominant religion for sure in the United States. I would think that you're familiar with the basic tenets of Christianity. I've provided for you on my USF some wisdom links, which if you take advantage of, I think they are a key. I adhere to the Christian worldview. The first sentence or the second sentence as far as major beliefs, everything revolves around that. If the appearance of Christ, which means anointed, that's Christ is a Greek word which means Joshua anointed. I mean, God came in the flesh. This ties together the Old and the New Testament, or the Jewish faith and the Christian one, the completion of the Jewish faith, to add a little bit to what they have said. It has been, I think, pretty straightforward in that sense. Cultural expressions. Now here's where we get into the business world. Individuals are unique. Stress is hard work. Courage in the face of adversity. There is an afterlife, or we don't die. We die physically, but spiritually we live on. God's personal. We are created in the spiritual image, not a physical image of God, and so on. That's why we're an eternal spirit or eternal being. Judaism, or the Jewish faith, which is the origins or the foundational faith of Christianity. Christianity sprung from Judaism. Jesus was a Jewish teacher, and the Jews would say they're still waiting for the Messiah or the Christ to come. And I don't pretend to be an expert in Judaism by any stretch of the imagination, but you can read Orthodox and Reformed. I would say that there are more cultural Jews, meaning they identify culturally more than religiously with the Judaism, than there are what I would say the Orthodox, or the more fundamental type of practice of the Jewish religion, and so on. So you can read through that. Now, they are a small group relative to the other major religions, but because of the Jewish culture, they have been inordinately successful in the arts, law, business, science, medicine, engineering, and so on, because there's been there's been a lot of pressure from the outside, a lot of, the Jewish people have been tormented and persecuted for a long, long time, thousands of years, since Roman times, and they have been very protective of each other, and but they have been very accomplished people, and that's in politics as well, very accomplished, and it's just no other way to say it. Islam spread as a result of spread at the point of a sword, really, and through conquest and things in the Muhammad saw corruption in his world and had a conversation with the angel Gabriel, I believe. And anyway, but different view, a different view indeed. One got Allah, for sure a different view than Christianity, and although there are some common elements, and Jesus is mentioned in the Quran, but not in the same context that he is in the Christian writings. So we got the core pillars. No distinction between religion, society, and government. Gender roles, they say they're in a state of flux. It's really, I don't know if that's the most accurate statement. Men dominate the society, especially in the Orthodox Islam. There's a judgment, without a doubt. I don't think they really know if they're going to make it to heaven until they get to Judgment Day. Hinduism, they talk about the Aryans, a European tribe that moved into northern India, created this religious cultural expression. And I know even less about this, quite honestly, but again, you can see it in it's manifested itself in how the culture in the country functions today. there was a caste system, meaning once you were born into a caste, you stayed there. It's kind of like if you were born in a low caste, you didn't rise above that. This would be a huge difference between this and the West. You didn't rise above it. If you were born into it, you stayed there. In the U.S., they would say you're mobile in any direction. That is a different way to look at things. Different stages of life, and so on. Buddhism, is a person, more of a philosophy. There's an eightfold plan to take care of things. Trouble comes from wanting things. Self-discipline, mental discipline is part of Buddhism. Karma. You might even hear that term from time to time. Things come back to you because of your activities. Hinduism, I believe, if I recall correctly, believes in reincarnation. Confucianism, again, it was a man born 551 BC. Talked about virtue. Confucius asserted that government must be founded on virtue, must be attentive to the duties of their position. There's some basic tenets. Sons and fathers, minister, ruler, wife, husband, upper members. A lot of sayings. And there you go. So the reason to study these in a business context, in a communication context, is to see where people come from. Their perspectives are important in this regard. Okay. Thank you very much.